this debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live. This is why we need independent media.
Cheers and salutations. Welcome to another episode of Hard Lens Media. So glad to have all of you here with us. As always, we're happy to give a platform to individuals who have the courage and the strength to call out our politicians for their hypocrisy. The Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment, as I've said on this show, are, again, just actors who work for the top 1%, big banks, corporations, the military-industrial complex, big oil, the prison-industrial complex, big pharma, the healthcare insurance industry, and so much more. Our money's being wasted. Our money is being spent. This country's being bled dry by our politicians who don't care. All the while, when we ask for Medicare for all, student debt forgiveness, investment into our infrastructure, our politicians look at us like livestock and say, there's no money, expecting us to believe their bold-faced lie. But yet there's money for war, money for the war on drugs, money for the war on terror, money for this war in Ukraine, and so much more. That's why I'm proud to bring on our special guest. He's been on our show twice now. So glad to have him back on. Give it up for Jose Vega, who's one of the dauntless few to actually have the courage to call out our lawmakers. And a lot's been happening this past few weeks, especially when challenging, the minority speaker of the House, Hakeem Jeffries. Give it up for Jose Vega. Jose, so glad to have you here with us. I want to make sure you get a proper intro. So there you go. Good to have you back here with us, man.
No, thank you for having me. I'm always happy to be on Hard Lens. You're awesome, Kit, and thanks for having me on.
No problem. And already the live stream chat is cheering you on. They're calling you a hero. They're saying you're the guy who has the Screw Google writes, Jose, the verbal hitman Vega. There you go, man. You're the verbal hitman of these Democratic frauds, these lawmakers that like to screw us over.
Sure.
So
just before we get started, I do want to shout out, my friend Kynan, who does a lot of the interventions. It was his birthday yesterday, so people should send him a little happy birthday message,
Okay, well, listen, if you're following Jose Vega, please follow Kynan as well, and give him some birthday wishes, okay? Because those two together, most notably, were the two individuals that called out AOC in October of last year of 2022. So if you're not following these two on social media, what's wrong with you? Plus, I was also on their show as well. So support new independent commentators, independent media. It's the right thing to do. So there you go. So follow them on social media. And once again, happy birthday to your colleague and friend. And I hope he's having a very good day. So party it up. But real quick, I have the video where you're calling out Hakeem Jeffries. So before I do play the video, I think every story has a beginning, middle, and end. And there's a setup to what happened. So in your own words, and I know you've had a chance to speak about this on social media, but in your own words, when you and your colleagues were getting ready to set up to call out Hakeem Jeffries for the fact that, again, the Democratic establishment seemed to be on this march for more war funding and war spending, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. First, how did you guys hear about this event? And then heading there, what was the overall atmosphere like, and then what was the aftermath? I know that there was some blowback towards you, and I want to, at least from your own words, get your perspective about what exactly went down.
Sure. The way we heard about the event was I knew it was happening for a while. I don't want to give away too much on how I find these events, but I am working on a guide for people who want to do interventions, like an in-depth guide, because Nick Brana and I said that we were going to do Zoom classes to teach people how to do interventions, and so that is coming, that is on the way. But anyway, I knew about the event a long time, maybe like at the beginning of February, and I just got some of my friends, I let them know this was going on, and then I just said, let's go. And as we got there, you never really know what the environment or the situation is like, because no two interventions are the same. I think there's like 2 or 3 different types of interventions. There's dialogue, there's disruption, and there's something in the middle. a dialogue can happen if there is an honest Q&A, like what happened with Richie Torres, where they were taking questions from the audience. You had to raise your hand. Richie Torres, I was called on. I was able to have a dialogue with him. A disruption is like the AOC thing. It wasn't an honest Q&A because all the questions were pre-selected, so we had to be heard. The Jeffries one was like in between. It was between dialogue and disruption, because he tried to shut me up halfway through, so you have to then switch to disruption. So I remember with my friends, and Lucy, who I see is in the chat, was there too. I said, let's see if they're going to take questions first of all, because they usually say that in the beginning, if they're going to take questions or if they're just going to do a straight dialogue. And so I was like, let's wait. And when I heard there will be questions, I was like, okay, everybody chill out. We were texting each other like, okay, if you get to go first, if I get to go first, whatever. But then the guy said, okay, we're only taking 2 questions and you have to line up at the mic. So I like booked it to the microphone, and then that's what happened. And then you see what happened in the video.
And we will play that soon. But and I think it's only fair. You want me to play the video and we could talk about the aftermath then?
Yeah.
All right. So, folks, and again, this video went viral, 1.6 million views on the Twitter post and about 657K views already. Outstanding work by Jose and his team. And look, folks, before anyone else gets upset, especially the diehard vote blue no matter who crowd, politicians are supposed to be challenged. They're supposed to be criticized, not treated with kid gloves. These politicians make 6-figure salaries, okay? They have gold-plated health care. They have other wonderful social benefits. And a lot of these politicians do insider trading, which means they're getting ridiculously rich. They don't care about you. And I've said this on the show before. Before the war in Ukraine took place, as the Russian tanks are getting ready to cross the Ukrainian border, politicians in the Democratic and Republican Party in the United States House, see, what they have is the opportunity to get insider information on their stocks and bonds and everything else. So they get to be one step ahead of the trade so they can make a killing, a lot of money. And a lot of these politicians are made aware of what's happening around the world. They got their aides, they got their team members to give them advice and information. As those tanks were getting close to the Ukrainian border, those politicians, a lot of them, and shout out to Unusual Whales. If you're not following them on Twitter, please do so. Well, those politicians were made aware about what was happening. And did you think those brave, intelligent politicians in the Democratic and Republican Party in the United States House of Representatives, you think they called an emergency session to make sure they open up diplomatic talks? No, they didn't do that. What they did was call up their brokers. In 2020, our politicians made a killing in stocks and shares in the military-industrial complex, big oil, and so much more. So before the war started, they made some money. So I want to play this video here of Hakeem Jeffries being called out by Jose Vega about, again, our politicians giving so much money to Ukraine. They're all making money on this. The only innocent people in this are civilians, the Russian civilians, the Ukrainian civilians, the European civilians, the American civilians. Shout out to Jose.
The UN Security Council had a meeting yesterday, and Ray McGovern spoke to it. He is a former member of the CIA.
Oh, you know what? Wait, can you pause it real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just before this, what I do whenever I cut together these interventions, I always try to start it like right where the action is, right? Because I don't want to bore people to death in social media. So before this, there were like 5 seconds I cut out. I go up to the microphone. This is like some behind the scenes for people who may not,
don't give too much of the sauce away.
Oh, no. But once I got up to the microphone, I said, "Hi, Mr. Jeffries. My name is Jose Vega, and not to compete with you, but I'm from the Bronx. You're from Brooklyn, but we do it a little better here." Something like that. And
Okay.
then I said, and then everybody laughed, and then that's when I got into the question. And it's important too when you do these interventions, because you have to think not just about how the internet is going to receive it, because they're not in the room with you, right? The internet doesn't know the lead up or the context, right? They just see what you present to them, right? but then the people in the room can also be won over too. And I want to make that point too. If you can get the audience to trust you, then you buy yourself time, because then they'll take whatever you say seriously. You seem more of a reasonable, rational person. So, yeah.
All right.
That's all.
Then we will continue on. All right.
In support of Seymour Hersh's article on the United States bombing Nord Stream pipeline. If it is proven that the United States bombed the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, as has been asserted by Seymour Hersh and his article, will you call for the United States to acknowledge and admit that that was an act of war against Germany and Russia? And I'm asking this because this may be the only way to prevent the rest of us from being killed in a thermonuclear war. And I don't want to be fried. Don't you think the media should be reporting on whether or not this is true? And don't you think you should be inquiring into whether or not this is true?
Now, again, folks, it was deemed controversial to think that, maybe it wasn't the Russians that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Again, Jose, real quick before we play the rest of the video, I want you just at least tell the people a little bit about the Nord Stream pipeline. I mean, it's quite clear that when it was blown up, I mean, so much, well, fossil fuel material and toxic materials put into that ecosystem. But I think for the most part, a lot of Americans are truly unaware of really what's being reported to them. So can you just enlighten us just a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, no. So the Nord Stream 2 is a pipeline, or was a pipeline, that connected Russia to Germany, and it gives gas to Germany, right? So Russia gives gas to Germany, right? And what this means is gas is important because it's what turns your light on, it's what turns your stoves on, it's what turns your heat on, right? And 50% of power was relied on from Russia, because Russia was giving 50% of Germany's power infrastructure through that pipeline. So when we blew it up, when the United States blew up that pipeline, Germany had to become reliant on America exporting our energy to Germany through this company called LNG. And what this has resulted in is blackouts and brownouts in Germany, people struggling with heat, and people struggling with their electric bills too, because it costs 3 times more money through this company LNG from America to Germany, for them to ship energy, gas through ships, than it was through this pipeline, right? So this was like a power move by the United States to kind of submit Germany into being its little slave, saying, no, you rely on us to do what we tell you to do, and you're going to buy our energy. And that's what happened. And that's what Nord Stream 2. And so and when that first blew up, people were like, oh, this was definitely the United States. But then Sy Hersh, this investigative journalist, very important guy, he's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. He's exposed some of the greatest stories of the last 50 years, comes out basically confirming that the United States blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And, this should be taken seriously, because he's saying, yeah, I have sources that tell me we did it in collaboration with Norway, and that we didn't tell Congress about it. So that means Hakeem Jeffries was not given an explanation or a briefing on this. This went right over his head, right? And when I confront these politicians, I'm not saying take this as absolute truth. I'm saying go inquire about it, go investigate it, right? Because this isn't just some, independent journalist like Kit, which, by the way, Kit, if you said anything about the United States, I would believe you. If you said the United States, did anything, I would believe you, but right, this is Seymour Hersh, right? So like, go and see if it's true, and they won't even entertain that. So yeah.
Wow. So and again, folks, it's very important that we have to be critical of the information that's being given to us by corporate media, because there's always a narrative. Remember, the same people who own our politicians also control our media. Continuing on.
Well, thank you for the question. One, I've got no information to suggest that the United States was involved in bombing the Nord Stream pipeline.
Because you weren't briefed on it.
Sir, you got your chance to ask a question.
So you give me an opportunity to respond.
You weren't given information because he explicitly says you weren't briefed on it. Shouldn't you inquire?
So here's what I'll say about, I think, President Biden's leadership generally as it relates to the Ukraine and Russia.
We committed an act of war. What are you doing to respond to that? We have to hold Biden accountable. Listen, you're from Brooklyn, right? You know when to call bullshit when you see it. So do I. This is bullshit right now. And I see what's happening right now. That does not silence me. You can hear me right now. I want you to say something about the bombing because we're all going to die from a nuclear war right now unless you stop it and you at least put and inquire into whether or not it's true. This war in Ukraine is going to leave us all dead. So what are you going to do? Because you need to inquire. I'm a New Yorker too.
Here's what I'll say.
Say it.
We're going to continue to stand with the Ukrainian people.
That's fucking bullshit. Do not do that. You will end us all
in
dead.
this war against Vladimir Putin.
Peace. We need talks.
Because
why are you sabotaging talks? Do not put your hands on me. We need peace talks. I am not going to take this. We need peace talks. You are leaving. Listen.
Democracy.
Did you even read the allegations?
Autocracy. It's a battle between
how about accountability? Not airheadedness.
And it's a battle between tyranny
and
freedom. And democracy, truth, and freedom will prevail. And the United States is going to help make sure that happens.
Not destruction. How about that?
I want to ask you to join me.
You goddamn airhead! You're gonna kill us all. I don't want to die in a goddamn nuclear war. And nobody does.
Right on.
Yeah,
so,
and I will say that the last thing, accountability, not airheadedness. On the way there, I was listening to his his speech. The one where he did that whole alphabet rap. You know which one I'm talking about?
Wait. Can you elaborate a little bit more?
The night that they elected the Speaker of the House.
Oh.
Jeffries did this speech where he was like, it's about accountability, not autocracy, okay? It's about democracy, not demagoguery. And he did A through Z. It was this horrible, cheesy speech. And so I was listening to it and I was like, okay, at some point I've got to throw in my remix in there. And like, I was even asking my other friends, I was like, hey, what rhymes with accountability? I couldn't think of anything, so I just went with airheadedness. And then I said, bridges, not bombs, conversation, not cremation. I was trying to kind of like, really, really, really like crap on him because I thought that speech was horrible. First of all, it was an insult to Americans who want a serious guy to represent them. And there really is nothing going on up there with him. He really, I don't mean to insult him. I'm just accurately describing what he is, right? He is an airhead. He only knows how to repeat those same lines. And so when he started yelling at me, because it's about democracy, not autocracy, I was like, oh, he's repeating that stupid speech. I gotta go in now and like really make him look like a fool.
He did his own school. I forgot that he did it. Thank you for actually putting it. Again, this whole entire covering the news, you get the blurring effect, and sometimes you forget things. And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot these politicians did. The one takeaway I took from that election for the Speaker of the House for the GOP was the fact that all those politicians were there late into the evening. I just love seeing them suffer, especially the old ones. Like, yeah, that's right, you goddamn bastards. You're there for 12 hours. Work. You stay there, and I never better not get an ounce of power because I would make the entire House of Representatives. No, folks, you're doing a 9 to 5. Okay, you're showing up, and don't give me the excuse of snow being outside because in Chicago, when you get 2 feet of snow, the manager calls you and says, hey, you're coming in. Oh, yeah, you better be coming in. All right, it's kind of operation I'll be running. But anyways, I don't want to get more on that, though. But again, folks, we need to see more things like this. And I'm glad that people like Jose are out there calling out the establishment, calling out these politicians. But something suspicious caught my eye, and I want you to clarify this because apparently... And if there's anything that I'm missing, I want you to stop correct me right away. But this did cost your job to where you were called. And I have to wonder, did a certain Democratic politician call a friend of a friend to look into what you do to find you and get you fired? Because, we have a thing called the First Amendment, which is kind of important. But can you clarify what happened?
Sure. I can't say too much because what it was I was in between jobs and I was scheduled to start a job like I think a day after I did that or so, or 2 days after I did that. And, you know, you go in like a day before or 2 days before, and they have you sign like, okay, give us your social. You know, we have to do a background check on you and give us, you know, your and you have to sign an NDA. I can't say too much about who it was or what it was, but it was a friend of mine who referred me. It was a group that, how do I put this, advocates for, you know, hospitals, right? So their biggest thing is like, you know, hospitals need more money because they ran out of money. And so I'm like, okay, all right, I can do the advocacy for that. That seems fair. They asked me when I went to the interview, like, hey, so are you a registered Democrat? And I said, no, I'm unaffiliated. They said, okay, no problem, no problem. It's just we have some clients that, you know, need to get on the ballot and stuff. And so when I asked them, like, who are your clients? They gave me names of people I've confronted and I said, like, hey, I'm a political activist, and like, you know, some of these people and the guy cut me off like, oh no, don't worry about it. Like, we have Republicans who work with us too, you know, like,
oh
it's okay.
My God, they didn't say that. Is, sorry to cut you off, but it's sort of like, oh yeah, some of my best friends are black, or like, yeah, we got Republicans here too. Yeah, everything's all hunky-dory. Oh my God.
And I was really trying to explain to the guy, like, no, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, and like, and the guy was just like, no, don't worry about it, man. Like, we just need people to, you know, stand outside and do stuff. And I was like, okay. And then he says, you consent to a background check, right? I'm like, yeah. And then he says, great. Okay, anyway, just, you know, come in that day for training and stuff, and we'll pay you. And then I get an email that says, you know, there's a conflict of interest, and we can't take you on anymore. So that's what happened, basically. Yeah. That's about the closest I'll come to publicly talking about the situation. I don't want to say any more because of the NDA, and I don't know, like,
screw these politicians. They're all scumbags.
Yeah,
they're all liars. They deserve to be confronted, Democrat and Republican. So I want to give you the final word for this, because obviously, you know, you keep on doing the great work, and we need more Americans to confront these politicians, because again, Americans are being evicted from their homes and apartments. Small businesses are being shut down. These politicians are doing insider trading. They got gold-plated health care. They have a 6-figure salary. Why do we need to respect these Democratic and Republican lawmakers? Because what? They've been in office for more than a decade, or they know how to be polite. They're smiling at you all the while they get to live a very lavish, successful lifestyle, while millions upon millions of Americans are suffering, millions upon millions of Americans are struggling with debt, home foreclosure, business being shut down, medical bankruptcy, student debt, etc., etc., etc. So what do you want to say to people that perhaps maybe are afraid to step up, that maybe want to be polite and not really raise the ruckus, but maybe work inside the system? What do you want to say to people that are on the sidelines, afraid to step up?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of ways to intervene. Like, for one, I think what Lucy's doing here in New York with our friend Roger, where they're like registering people independent, I think that's one good way to do it, because they're just going up to people who might be Democratic voters or just anybody and saying, listen, like, we want to make you an independent voter. You know, the Democratic Party sucks. And by the way, people should reach out to Lucy on Twitter, LucyCan22. If you're in New York, to help us register independence, because I think that's definitely one way to go. But the other way, too, is you've seen people like AOC and Bowman who think they can raise a ruckus from the establishment, who say, I'm going to be a Democrat, and then I'm going to, no, you don't. You get swallowed up by the machine because you don't really know what you're going up against. And in one tiny sense, like, I can't blame AOC for thinking she could change it from the inside and getting swallowed up. But now you're in too deep, and you are the establishment. Therefore, I have to hold you accountable. So I would just tell people, don't be afraid to stand up. Don't be afraid to speak out. They might try to harass you. Like, I know we didn't touch upon this, but the Capitol Police called me, you know, saying, am I going to do this again? Am I going to go see Hakeem Jeffries again? And
why? Okay, first of all, hey, Capitol Police, you don't have room to talk. On January 6th, half of you guys open the doors and let all the Trump people in. So why are you bothering my guy, Jose?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, what am I going to do? Every intervention I've done has been completely, exclusively nonviolent, and it will remain that way. I'll never do anything to hurt anybody or a representative, and nobody should. And if anybody ever does that, they're not with me. They're not with us, because, you know, we are exclusively a nonviolent movement. And so I would just say to people, look, know your rights. Even though we live in a corrupt, fascist country, you still do have the First Amendment that does protect you. Your First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment. Those three are your big boys. You have the right to stand up and call out your politician. Hey, call out your state senator. I've been thinking about doing that too, because honestly, or your council member, because people say they care about their neighborhood and their community and they're not concerned about the world around them. Yeah, a nuclear bomb being dropped on your head should, you know, pretty much, it'll affect your neighborhood too. So there is a basis to go after your council members and your state senators. It's just saying, I just want you to help me advocate, that Congress don't blow us up. So don't be afraid. Reach out to me if you need some advice on how to find an event or, what to do. I got you. And I'm in your corner. Anybody who stands up to these people is a friend of mine. I always post these interventions of other people doing that. Sometimes they really are my friends, and sometimes they're my friends because they do something that's worth being my friend. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well said. And as always, folks, never back down. Never apologize, and keep speaking truth to power. Jose is going to stay with me for the rest of the show, but we will be putting in the end credits here. So I want to thank all of you so much for watching us here at Hardlands Media. We have a show on Can TV, and I'll always shout out to the people at Can TV. And let's keep on speaking truth to power. So we'll be back in a few short seconds.
Economy creeping about a red. They did the issue, a little bit of bread. Miles away from that lady's ledge. Her senator waking safe and fed. Ain't got a paper to read in bed. Jerking them off as they count the dead.
Gorillas in the mist, skin suits in the Senate. Water in the streets, chest deep like it's Venice. Water out a tap in Jackson comes blacker than resin. Black incidentally like most of its residents, which is why it isn't on your television, isn't on the lips of your president. Well, I'm admitting that as evidence. I've been fleshing out a case to be made for the testament. I don't know what our collateral count is, but doubt it is less than the estimate. You just show us a hospital, watch as we Dresden it. Our propaganda gets taken to heart, and you're scarfing it, like it or not. If you think that you aren't, I would urge you to pick that apart, cause you're drinking it, smoking it, driving it, dressed in it. We pay for it, pray to it, bathe in it, fill up the basin, and babies are blessed in it. Ask no questions, bask in the pestilence. See, honey, when the plague goes live, you'd be wise to invest in it. See, honey, when the plague goes live, just between you and I, that's an industry sign that they're all done testing it. And come 2025, they will all be confessing it. And then a few small fry fall guys all fly from the precipice, who are doomed to be wasted like shell corporations, dissolving to vapor, then gone with the resonance, gone with the sense and the sentiments, gone with the dust of the remnants, gone with the ghosts of the regiment, gone like those families in Gaza whose bodies and homes are demolished when Israel sets up a settlement. Gone like your chance at a settlement. Gone like the hope of apologies out of those funding our deadliest research and backroom development. Gone like your shot at a measly I'm sorry from the mouths of our own bioterrorists. God, you cannot imagine the face of the monster. You can't even fathom the scale of its carapace. It's under your feet, yet you're barely aware of it. You see, it's quietly judging the scope of your suffering, sizing you up like a therapist. Then it rides in your guts like a parasite, growing in size and excreting a culture that's purely embarrassment. Equal parts Manson and Maryland, equal parts something we push into madness and something we'll gladly exploit and objectify 50 years after it perishes. Carefully crafted and planned and arranged like a monarchy's marriages. Fucking cousins or otherwise, scourge of the colonized, staged and displayed for the sake of retaining those imperial barracks. And all to expedite a special type of anglicized dysplasia. The kind where half the world is waking up to learn they're being raided, raped, and robbed of all their heritage by Charles and his caravan of 30 servants' carriages. The kind where each in the procession is worth infinitely less, till eventually they're paid in sums of crown-approved disparagement and bonuses of shame, till they're finally told to thank the highest-ranking inbred pig named king of every garrison. One who rose into his power all immaculate, like Harris did. Well, now that garishness is melting down like paraffin that hardens in a shell and shelters terrified and threatened royal terrapin. Those that rule with zero question, although nobody elected it. Democracy was here till we dissected it. Democracy was here until the exhibition exodus. And the loss of that democracy is just a threat for those who've yet to recognize the scent of bait or know the taste of desiccants. Democracy was here and now the smear is all that's left of it.
Democracy was here and now the smear is all that's left of it.
Mother and baby on razor's edge, don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping about a rat as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. And ain't got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the debt. Mother and baby on razor's edge, don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping about a rat as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Ain't got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the debt. Mother and baby on razor's edge, they don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping about a rat as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Ain't got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the debt. Mother and baby on razor's edge, don't give a shit what your paper said. The economy creeping about a rat as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Ain't got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the debt. Mother and baby on razor's edge, they don't give a shit what your paper said. The economy creeping about a rat as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. And ain't got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the debt.
Economy creeping about a rat. They divvy a shitty little bit of bread. Miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking safe in bed. Ain't gonna